My husband replaced me overnight. But karma was even faster. I didn't see it coming. That's the part that still stings even now, even after everything. Not the betrayal itself. I can almost understand that in some twisted clinical way. People fall out of love. People make terrible choices. But the speed of it, the cold efficiency, the way I was erased from my own life as if I'd never existed, that is what leaves a scar that refuses to fade. His name was Daniel. We'd been married for 11 years, together for 14. We met in college, two broke kids with big dreams and empty pockets. He was studying architecture, I was studying law. We fell in love over late-night coffee runs and shared textbooks, over the kind of desperate, passionate hope that only youth can provide. We built a life together, brick by brick, from a cramped studio apartment with a leaky faucet to a beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. We had 2 children, a golden retriever and a garden I tended to with the same care I gave to our marriage. I thought we were happy. I thought we were solid. I thought I knew him. I was wrong. The signs were there, of course. In hindsight, they always are. The late nights at the office that stretched into early mornings, the sudden obsessive interest in his appearance, new cologne, a gym membership, a wardrobe overhaul that screamed midlife crisis. The way his phone became a permanent attachment to his palm, held at a careful angle so I could never see the screen. The way he flinched when I touched his shoulder, the way his kisses became perfunctory, the way his eyes stopped meeting mine across the dinner table. I asked him once if there was someone else. It was a Tuesday and I'd just finished cleaning the kitchen. The kids were in bed. The house was quiet. I stood in the doorway of his home office and watched him type furiously on his laptop, his brow furrowed, his lips pressed into a thin line. I said, my voice barely a whisper, "Is there something you want to tell me?" He looked up and for a split second I saw a flicker of something, guilt, panic, before his face settled into that familiar, placid mask. "What are you talking about, Emily? I'm just swamped with work. The Henderson project is killing me." I wanted to believe him. I wanted it so badly that I pushed the doubt down, buried it beneath layers of denial and duty. I was a good wife. I was a devoted mother. I kept the house immaculate. I cooked his favorite meals. I supported his career. I never complained about the long hours. I did everything right. Everything. And yet, on a Saturday morning 3 weeks ago, I woke up to find his side of the bed empty and a single sheet of printer paper on his pillow. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs, and unfolded the note with trembling hands. His handwriting was neat, almost surgical. "Emily, I can't do this anymore. I've met someone else. I'm in love with her and I'm leaving. I've already moved my things out. The lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. Please don't try to contact me. I've blocked your number, Daniel," just like that. 14 years, 11 of them as his wife, reduced to a few cold, clinical sentences on a piece of paper. He didn't even have the decency to say it to my face. He didn't even say goodbye to the children. I sat there for a long time, the note clutched in my hand, staring at the empty space where his body used to be. I felt numb, hollow, like someone had reached inside me and scooped out everything that made me human. Then the numbness gave way to a searing, white-hot rage that burned through my veins and left me shaking. I ran to the closet. His clothes were gone. His suits, his shoes, his ties, all of it vanished. I ran to the bathroom. His toothbrush, his razor, his cologne gone. I ran to the garage. His car was gone. I ran to the study. His laptop, his files, his books, all gone. He'd erased himself from our home with a precision that was almost military. There was no trace of him left, except for the note on my pillow and a gaping hole in my chest. I called his office. His assistant, a young woman named Chloe who I'd always been nice to, answered with a cheerful chirp. "Daniel's firm, how can I help you?" "It's Emily," I said, my voice cracking. "Is Daniel there?" There was a pause, a long, awkward pause. "Oh, Mrs. Harrison, Daniel is actually on leave this week. He mentioned a personal emergency." "Personal emergency." Right. The emergency of falling in love with another woman and abandoning his family. "Do you have a number for him?" I asked, hatting the desperation in my voice. He blocked my number. I need to reach him." Pause. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Harrison, I really can't help you. He was very clear that he didn't want to be disturbed." I hung up and threw the phone against the wall. It shattered into a dozen pieces and I didn't care. I sank to the floor, pulled my knees to my chest and sobbed until I had nothing left, until I was just a dry, hollow shell of a woman. Then the kids woke up. Lily, our 8-year-old, came padding down the stairs in her unicorn pajamas. "Mommy, where's Daddy?" I looked at her, her big brown eyes so full of trust, and I felt my heart splinter into 1,000 pieces. How was I supposed to tell her that her father had replaced her? That he'd chosen another woman over his own family? "Daddy had to go away for a while, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile that felt like a betrayal. He has some important work to do, but he loves you so much. I was lying to my own daughter to protect her from the truth, and I hated Daniel for making me do it. The next few days were a blur of pain and logistics. I had to call a lawyer. I had to open a separate bank account. I had to figure out how to pay the mortgage on a house that now felt like a mausoleum. I had to pretend to be okay for the children when all I wanted to do was curl up in a ball and disappear. And then on the third day I found out who she was. I was cleaning out his study, a futile attempt to regain some sense of control, when I found a receipt tucked inside a book. It was from a jewelry store, a diamond necklace priced at $15,000. The date was the day before he left. The recipient was listed as A. Reynolds. A. Reynolds, I didn't recognize the name. I did a quick search on social media and found her instantly. Amanda Reynolds, 28 years old, blonde, impossibly thin, a marketing executive with a smile that could light up a room and eyes that seemed to mock me from her profile picture. She was younger, prettier, and clearly more exciting than a 40-year-old lawyer with stretch marks and a minivan. I scrolled through her photos with a morbid fascination. There she was, posing in a bikini on a beach in Mexico. There she was, sipping champagne at a gallery opening. There she was, her arm wrapped around my husband's waist at a work gala I hadn't been invited to. He was smiling in that photo, a genuine, happy smile, the kind of smile he used to give me back when I was the center of his universe. I felt a cold, familiar rage settle in my bones. I wanted to call her. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to ask her how she could do this to another woman, how she could sleep at night knowing she'd destroyed a family, but I didn't. Instead, I closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and called my lawyer. His name was Marcus Webb, a shark in a three-piece suit who'd handled my parents' divorce 20 years ago. He was old school, ruthless, and he didn't suffer fools. I told him everything. The note, the empty closet, the blocked number, the girlfriend. He listened without interruption, his face impassive, and when I was done he nodded. "Worry, Emily," he said. "He made a critical error. He thinks he can walk away from you and the children without consequences. He's about to learn a very expensive lesson. I didn't care about the money. I cared about the betrayal. I cared about the cold, callous way he discarded me. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain he'd inflicted on me and the children. I wanted him to suffer. Marcus told me to play it smart, to keep my mouth shut, to document everything, and to let him work his magic. So that's what I did. I went through the motions of life pretending to be fine while my lawyer built a case that would bring my husband to his knees. And then 2 weeks after Daniel left, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Daniel, sent through his lawyer. It was a formal notice of the divorce proceedings along with a demand for a 70-30 split of our assets. He wanted the house. He wanted the car. He wanted primary custody of the children. He wanted everything. I laughed when I read it. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. He wanted primary custody. He'd left without even saying goodbye to his children, and he thought he could take them away from me. I called Marcus, and he laughed too. "Don't worry, Emily. This will be over before it begins." The hearing was scheduled for a month later. A month of sleepless nights, of pretending to be strong for the kids, of obsessively checking his social media to see the life he was building with Amanda. He'd moved her into a penthouse downtown. He'd taken her to Paris. He'd bought her a new car. He was living his best life, and he didn't give a damn about the wreckage he'd left behind. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head. The good times, the bad times, the promises, the betrayals. I thought about the life we'd built, and the way he'd torn it down with a single piece of paper. I thought about the children who still asked every day when Daddy was coming home, and I thought about Amanda. I'd never met her, but I'd built her into a monster in my head. A homewrecker, a man-stealer, a woman with no morals and no empathy. I hated her with a passion that consumed me. I finally fell asleep around 4 a.m, and I woke up with a start 2 hours later, my heart pounding. I glanced at my phone, expecting to see a message from Marcus, but there was nothing. Just a news alert that I didn't bother to read. I went through the morning routine on autopilot, made the kids breakfast, packed their lunches, drove them to school. I pasted a smile on my face and told them everything was going to be okay. They didn't believe me. I could see it in their eyes. They knew something was wrong. They just didn't understand what. I arrived at the courthouse early, dressed in my best suit, my face set in a mask of grim determination. Marcus was already there, waiting for me in the lobby. He looked worried. "What is it?" I asked. "Did something happen? Is the case in jeopardy?" He shook his head. "No, Emily, the case is fine. It's something else. I need to show you something." Handed me his phone. It was open to a news article. The headline read, Local architect Daniel Harrison arrested in Thailand for international fraud. Blood ran cold. I read the article with growing horror. Daniel had been arrested in Bangkok, where he'd fled with Amanda on what was supposed to be a romantic getaway. He'd been caught running a massive embezzlement scheme from his architecture firm, siphoning millions of dollars into offshore accounts. His partner had been arrested a week ago and had given him up in exchange for a lighter sentence. Daniel had been extradited back to the United States. He was in federal custody. He was facing decades in prison. Amanda, who'd been with him in Thailand, had been arrested as an accessory. She was facing charges too, and the money, the millions he'd stolen, was frozen. His assets were being seized. He had nothing. No house, no car, no money, no freedom. He had nothing. He was using the embezzled money to fund his new life, Marcus said, his voice grim. The penthouse, the trips, the jewelry, it was all paid for with stolen money. He's ruined Emily. And the divorce case, there's nothing to fight over anymore. The court will award you primary custody and he'll be lucky if he ever sees his children again. I stared at the article, my mind reeling. A part of me felt a dark, primal satisfaction. He'd gotten what he deserved. The universe had delivered justice in the most poetic way imaginable. He'd replaced me overnight, and karma had been even faster. It had reached across the ocean, yanked him from his happy new life and slammed him into a federal prison. But another part of me felt empty, hollow. The rage was gone, replaced by a profound sadness. I'd spent weeks obsessing over Daniel and Amanda, hatting them, wishing them ill. I'd been so consumed by my own pain that I'd failed to see the bigger picture. Daniel wasn't just a villain. He was a broken, desperate man who'd made terrible choices. He was still the father of my children. He was still the person I'd once loved. And Amanda wasn't a monster. She was a young woman who'd fallen for the wrong man. She'd been swept up in his lies and his money, and now she was paying the price. She'd thrown her life away for a dream that never existed. I went into the courtroom and faced the judge. Daniel wasn't there. He was in federal custody, awaiting trial. His lawyer, a weary-looking man who'd clearly been blindsided by the news, apologized profusely and withdrew all of Daniel's demands. "Your husband's financial situation has changed," the judge said, looking at me over his reading glasses. "Given the circumstances, I'm awarding you full custody of the children, the house, and all remaining assets. Mr. Harrison will be required to pay child support and alimony, although, well, given his current circumstances, it's unclear if he'll be able to." I nodded, not really hearing the words. The hearing was over in minutes. The divorce was finalized. I was free, but freedom felt strangely hollow. I went home, sat in the living room and stared at the walls. The house was quiet. The kids were at school. Daniel was in jail, Amanda was in jail, and I was alone. I'd gotten everything I wanted. I'd been vindicated. My husband had been humiliated, punished, destroyed. And yet I felt no joy, only a bone-deep weariness. I started to think about Daniel as a person, not as the monster I'd painted him to be, but as the man I'd married, the man who'd held my hair back when I was sick, the man who'd stayed up all night with our colicky baby, the man who'd cried at our wedding. He'd been a good man once. What had happened to him? What had driven him to such desperation? The embezzlement, I realized, hadn't started with Amanda. It had started years ago when his firm was struggling. He'd been under so much pressure, so desperate to succeed that he'd made a terrible choice. And then he'd made another and another until he was in too deep to see a way out. Amanda had been a symptom, not the cause. She was the escape, the fantasy, the distraction from the life he'd ruined. He hadn't left me for her. He'd left me because he couldn't face me anymore. He couldn't face the shame of what he'd done, and I, in my pain and anger, had been so blind to all of it. I'd been so focused on my own suffering that I'd failed to see the man I loved was drowning. I went to see him in prison. It wasn't easy. I had to fill out forms, wait in line, submit to a pat-down. I had to watch him walk into the visitation room in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed, his face pale and haggard. He looked 10 years older. His eyes were hollow, haunted. "Emily," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You came. Why did you do it, Daniel?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why did you throw everything away?" He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know. I was so stupid. I was so scared. I'd made such a mess of things and I didn't know how to fix it. Amanda, she was a distraction. She made me feel like I was someone else, someone who wasn't drowning. You should have talked to me," I said. "I was your wife. I was supposed to be your partner. We could have figured it out together." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry for leaving you. I'm sorry for leaving the kids. I'm sorry for the embezzlement. I'm sorry for all of it. I've ruined everything, Emily. I've ruined my life, and I've ruined yours. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream at him to tell him that he deserved everything that had happened, but looking at him broken and defeated, I felt only sorrow. Sorrow for the man he'd been and sorrow for the man he'd become. I need to know you didn't love her, I said, the words tasting like ashes. I need to know that what we had, what we built, meant something. Looked at me with such anguish, such regret that my heart broke all over again. I loved you, Emily, I never stopped loving you. Amanda, she was never you, she could never be you. I was just so lost and she was there and she made me feel for a little while like I wasn't a complete failure, but it was all a lie. The whole thing was a lie, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. I believed him, I don't know why, but I did. Maybe it was the look in his eyes. Maybe it was the desperation in his voice. Maybe it was just the need to believe that our marriage had been real, that it hadn't all been a waste. I'm going to take care of the kids, I said, my voice steady. I'm going to tell them the truth, not all of it, not the parts they're too young to understand, but I'll tell them that their father loves them and that he made terrible mistakes. I'll make sure they know you're sorry. He sobbed then, ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that shook his entire body. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, you don't have to do that, I don't deserve it, I don't deserve anything from you. Still their father, I said, my voice soft. No matter what you've done, you're still their father, and they need to know that you love them. I left the prison feeling lighter. The weight of my anger, my hatred, my desire for revenge, it was all gone. What was left was a quiet understanding. Daniel wasn't the villain I'd made him out to be. He was a flawed, broken man who'd made catastrophic choices. And Amanda wasn't the homewrecker I'd imagined. She was a woman who'd been taken in by a charming lie. Karma had been fast and karma had been brutal. But karma wasn't justice, it wasn't closure. It was just the natural consequence of bad choices. Daniel had built his own prison long before the authorities came knocking, and now he was living in it. I went home, picked the kids up from school, and hugged them tighter than I ever had before. I told them that their father loved them and that he was sorry he couldn't be with them right now. I told them that he was sick and that he was getting help. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was a truth they could handle. Daddy ever coming home? Lily asked, her eyes wide with hope. I looked at her, my beautiful, trusting daughter, and I felt a surge of love so powerful it nearly knocked me over. I don't know, sweetheart, I said, my voice trembling. I don't know. But what I do know is that I'm here and I'm never going to leave you. I'm going to be here for every single moment, I promise. I meant it. I had no idea what the future held. I had no idea what kind of life I would build for myself and the children. I only knew that I was free. Free from Daniel's lies, free from my own anger, free from the prison I'd built around my own heart. I was free to start over, free to heal, free to love again when I was ready. The divorce was final. Daniel was in prison, Amanda was in prison, the children were with me, and I was alive.